Angela Rayner refused to rule out Labour MPs being punished if they vote against the government's welfare bill. The Deputy Prime Minister defended the plans in the Commons on Wednesday during a session of Prime Minister's questions in which she was deputising for Keir Starmer. She told MPs the party was pursuing the plan, which is predicted to result in 1.2 million people with disabilities losing thousands of pounds a year, in the interests, apparently, of both fairness and getting people back into work. The proposals have sparked uproar among Labour MPs, with as many as 170 saying they could have voted against the bill, enough to defeat the government for the first time. The bill will cut personal independent payments for more than 800,000 people with disabilities, as well as carer support for 150,000 people who care for them. Claimants only able to wash half of their body or who are unable to cook a meal for themselves will no longer be able to claim PIP unless they have another limiting condition. And when that last line, those who can't wash themselves now have to face more rigorous hurdles. It is beyond disgusting. Now, despite the fact that Angela Rayner will back this bill, this is what she said when she was in opposition under Jeremy Corbyn. Getting a lot of questions on personal independent payments, and if I will oppose the Tory cuts, I will oppose them 100%, as will Labour. Speaking of Jeremy Corbyn, Jeremy and the Independent Alliance have put forward an amendment to the bill. Independent Alliance tables an amendment to the Universal Credit and Personal Independence Payment Bill, declined to give it second reading on the grounds that it fails to provide a fair and compassionate approach to reforming disability benefits. The amendment says that the bill will push 50,000 children in relative poverty and that it has not been designed to uphold the dignity, independence and security of people who rely on the welfare system. Now, this is what Jeremy Corbyn had to say on the bill. The government's attack on disabled people is disgusting and disgraceful, and MPs should think long and hard about the dreadful consequences these cuts will have. MPs must decide, did you become an MP so you could push thousands of disabled people into poverty? Sarah, I want to get your thoughts on this. I mean, obviously, it's very, very good to see people like Jeremy and the Independent Alliance fighting this, but most likely these changes will probably go through. What's your take on these welfare reforms? You're on mute. One day.
One day we'll get it right. Sorry, it's because I keep muting because I cough all the time. Anywho, as I was saying, I feel like this whole welfare bill, the cuts around it are just, it's betrayal. You've got oh my god. Can I just apologise in advance for how bad this is going to be, because my cough is horrific. Anyway, as I was saying, that I think this is utter betrayal. You've got basically what I deem as a political crime against some of the most vulnerable people in our society, the disabled, the working classes. And it goes back to everything that we were saying. This is literally a class war that's happening right in front of us. And I do think that the Labour government, Angela Rayner particularly, is very complicit. And it's someone that I thought would be on side because she's this working class hero. I suppose she's supposed to be a working class hero. I deemed her to be before Labour government came in. She loved to talk about being raised on a council estate, leaving school at 16. Like, she is the poster child of what it means to be a working class individual. And that's fair enough. That's her background. But if you spend your life climbing out of poverty only to pull the ladder up behind you, then what exactly have you learned and what exactly do you stand for? Sorry. Oh my God, I'm going to cough. But what's even more grotesque, I think, and I call this all the time, is that this is actually political theatre, because it's not coming from the Tories, which you would expect it to come from. This is literally Labour policies. And this is what Keir Starmer's deeming or regarding as like realism. And then Rayner's like right behind him, who actually, can we just say, is the same Rayner under Corbyn that tweeted in all caps that she would oppose 100% any cuts. So the irony there is actually insane. And she's now defending them in the House of Commons, cracking these jokes, wagging these fingers and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know, like, what's changed? So all of this stuff, we have to preface with the fact that over 50,000 children, this will push over 50,000 children into poverty, on top of how many children are in poverty already. And poverty isn't just whether they can get meals every single day. It's also the fact that there are some kids who don't even have a bed to sleep in at night. Bed poverty is very real. And that's a direct line from Parliament to empty stomachs to insecure housing. It's a frightening thing. So I think the country at the moment has been waging a very, very slow motion war on disabled people for over a decade, on working class people for over a decade too. And we could cite the Tories under this as well, because this has been some sort of bipartisan assault that's been happening for a very long time.
Yeah, I definitely think it's bipartisan, because this policy of attacking welfare has been something that both parties are engaging in, right? And, well, I mean, for a short period of time under Jeremy Corbyn, that wasn't the case, but it is now. I mean, what's interesting, I mean, you brought up Angela Rayner, we can speak about her in a second. So we're getting a lot of feedback on my sound here. About Angela Rayner, you're right. I mean, she completely opposed the cuts under Jeremy Corbyn. Of course, that was the collective responsibility of the party at the time. But how much have they changed? And Angela Rayner was someone who was seen on the left beforehand. I think if she was Prime Minister, by the way, she wouldn't be probably pushing these things through. But it doesn't really matter, you know. There's no point thinking about hypotheticals. She's the deputy leader of a political party that promises change. And what they're going to do is take payments away from 800,000 people. And in particular, right, that paragraph where it spoke about people who can only wash half of their bodies, right? That apparently alone isn't enough to qualify you for PIP. People who have that disability every single day in their lives now have to qualify for another condition. So when people say, do you know what, there's people sat on their asses doing nothing, they don't need it, or it's about getting disabled people into work, I'm sorry, but this is a load of nonsense. And I'm sure you'll agree with me, but people will die.
Sorry, 100%. I keep muting, but no, absolutely, you're absolutely right, because it's not these decisions are not accidental. They're 100% strategic. Labour is so obsessed with looking fiscally responsible, like fiscal responsibility. How is this responsible in any way whatsoever? If you are pushing people into the brink of poverty, into poverty, or worse, into their graves. This is potentially something that could link could be linked to a lot of deaths in the future. I mean, we saw it under Cameron when he'd slashed the Independent Living Fund, and we saw it under May when she'd introduced, you know, the Fit for Work tests, and then under Johnson we saw a lot of DWP linked deaths. What makes Labour any different than any of these leaders in the past? So Labour obviously is obsessed with looking fiscally responsible, and that means sacrifices, but it only ever starts from the bottom, or who they regard is on the bottom. Never the arms dealers, never the big corporations, never the oil companies. No, it's always the disabled, it's always the working class communities, the carers, the people without lobbies or PR firms. It's people that they don't regard as important. But the person who does stand up, it seems to be Jeremy Corbyn. It always has been Jeremy Corbyn and the Independent Alliance that are tabling an amendment that calls this bill out for what it is, and it's an attack on dignity. And there's no way around it. It literally says, no, sorry, we're not going to accept poverty as some sort of precondition for participation in society, because that's what opposition looks like. That's what being on the side of the working classes looks like. That's what it means to stand up for the disabled people. It means calling this fiscal irresponsibility, because you're pushing people into more and more poverty. And I think, and I keep going back to Angela Rayner because I think she's such a traitor. Like, you talk so much about your working class background, and then to what end? Frankly, I don't care. I don't want people to weaponize their identities as a means to be like, well, I represent you, because then I regard you no different to those that stand in the Reform Party that have a pint in their hand. It doesn't give you a license to punch down. In fact, what it should do, Angela, is make you fight harder, because if you remember what it's like to rely on a system, then how the hell can you justify dismantling it?
Support independent media, support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.